That sure didn't take long. Trouble. Trouble. Mobley. Mobley. Over here. Oh, trouble. I don't think you understand what's going on. It isn't 8 o'clock yet, so I thought I'd try to, give these guys a cameo, but they really don't understand what's going on. I've never fed them here before. Mobley. Trouble. See how well or how terrible that works. And, well, at least one of them's eating it. Mobley, come here, come here. Gotcha. Oh, Mobley. You are. All right. And one other thing, I've got to rush upstairs because my computer is on in my office and I can hear the echo from this down here. So I will give me a chance to test this. Bluetooth. I could hear the reception was starting to cut out when I went upstairs while still wearing this mic. Let me check my connections here. And with that, it should be just about time. Oh, there we are. Well, the audio problems was because I walked upstairs to the second floor to turn off the browser in my office. It was also tuned into this live video, and it was not. And oh, YouTube issues. Okay. YouTube issues. Okay. Then I have to ask, how does the video sound, and how does the video appear, and how does the voice sound? Are we coming in clearly here? Because I'm hoping I didn't disrupt things by walking upstairs. I see William Hurt has had black beans and rice with boar's head ham, which is nice. And hello, Clico, and hello, Black Cat's Rule. The sound is good. Okay, good. Yeah. Like I said, I went upstairs with this mic, and obviously that must be the range of this Bluetooth mic. But here we are, nonetheless. Hi there. Welcome once again to Cast Iron Wednesday, which has been a tradition for the past few years for a number of YouTube cooking channels to do a cast iron video on Wednesday. I've been doing this now for about 2.5 years myself, and well, I'm very pleased that I've managed to get enough people interested that they keep coming back every week. As always, I can only thank everybody here for showing up. Especially since tonight is pretty much the monthly Q&A of the rack here, where, as you can see, I've got a fair amount of my cast iron collection up on display. And yes, And once again, I can only thank everybody. And hello again to Cynthia Wesley and Deb Scott and Jose Latios. Oh, yeah. And yeah, those were my cats too as well. Trouble. Uh-oh. In fact, I've got one other thing to do. Trouble is pawing at this little treat container here. He's hoping he can knock it in last interruption. But nonetheless, okay, let's get these things out of the way now so that I don't accidentally step on them. And at last, we are ready. Okay. But yes, as I mentioned, this is, I've been trying to do a cast iron Q&A session for the first week of each month, although it was postponed to this week because last week was a special edition of the annual preparation of the corned beef and cabbage, and the corned beef at least, and the corned beef is still in the fridge right now. So, but yes, again, hello everybody. Jimmy Langford says breaking up bad, sound cutting out again. I'm wondering if that was because I cut in sound buffering here. Okay, hello, Neshus River catfishing. Pretty sad tonight. Bought a whole vintage Lodge Arc logo Dutch oven. It was poorly packaged. Oh no, and the lid was cracked when you opened the box. I'm very sorry. We're cooking up the corned beef next Wednesday. Well, to be absolutely honest, I have to say no because I am having guests over for dinner on St. Patrick's Day, which is a week from Friday. So that means that unfortunately the corned beef is not coming out until next Friday. But that's all right. We will still be able to prepare for St. Patrick's Day nonetheless. However, oh, I'm very sorry to hear that. Yeah, it sounds like you were another victim of the U.S. Post Office, I guess. And my very much condolences because, yeah, a large arc logo ridge, those are obviously, they are lost treasures. And when one is lost, well, they can never be replaced. I mean, yes, you could find another one in the treasure hunt, of course, but I mean, what can you say? It's like those lids and that cast iron was made over 100 years ago. There's only a limited amount of them left in the world. A lot of them, in fact, were lost to the scrap iron drives of World War II as well. So, yes, indeed, I can only offer my condolences for that. But nonetheless, blue shirt, yes, I guess it is something of a blue shirt because I'm wearing black pants here, and I don't always go for the goth look, namely black and black. So, but and nonetheless, we are here, as I said, for a cast iron Q&A, where I'm pretty much here to answer questions or try to answer questions, and you folks here can also answer questions. This is not just simply a one person here dominating this chat and answering questions, because I've said before, I'm still an amateur at this. Yes, I've been collecting for about 12 years or so, and I'm proud to be a cast iron nerd, but there's a lot I still don't know about cast iron and may never know. And my collection is not absolutely, I certainly don't have every cast iron pan ever made, and I'm very much open to input from anybody else as well, such as Val's Black Cats, for instance. Val's Black Cats Rules, who had asked about cleaning. Is it possible to clean build up from only the underside of a pan, which seems to suggest that you've got a pan with a nice, good, slick inside, but you want to get the outside clear. And, well, as the comments have already said, there's really not a good answer to that, unfortunately. I mean, this whole thing, cast iron restoration is not an exact science. I mean, some have suggested, just maybe using a very shallow pan with lye in it and lay the pan in the lye in a manner so that it doesn't leak into the inside of the pan and just simply strips away most of the outside. Of course, there's really no guarantee of that, and getting a few drops in to the inside of the pan would probably still make a noticeable, I guess you could say, anti-stain, or the opposite of a stain, on the inside of the pan as well. I would probably have to suggest biting the bullet, stripping the pan completely, and getting it down to you know, the point where it was when it was first manufactured. So, and I realized, I know I spent a lot of time building up the seasoning on that pan. That's really, I feel, would be a sacrifice that I would have to make in that instance. A few years ago, for instance, after several years of using my large cast iron wok here, was starting to get some real buildup on the outside, and so I simply did completely strip it down, top and bottom, and quite frankly, I don't regret re-seasoning it. So that would be one thing I would have to say. Did Lodge ever make no-notch skillets? You didn't mention them in your Lodge video. As a matter of fact, yes, they did. The very earliest Lodge, pans, apparently even before the ARC logo pans, were unmarked pans well, let's see. You know those Southern mystery skillets that they have floating around all over the place? The ones that have a raised number 8 on the top. On the top of the handle, and most people say that they are Southern mystery skillets, large for 2 reasons. They are actually very slightly smaller than Lodge pans, and the handles are not shaped exactly right like Lodge handles. Well, we have seen some, I guess you could call them first generation Lodge pans that look like those Southern mystery skillets, except that they are the right size as Lodge pans, and they do in fact have something of a Lodge handle. I'd have to say they're extremely rare, but yes, in fact, there have been no-notch Lodge skillets. Microphone needs to be lowered. Oh, every time I walk away, it breaks up. Okay, I'm very sorry about that. All right. Okay, breaking up on my end. Okay, well, yeah, I can see we've got a bit of difficulty here. Then in that case, I do apologize once again. All right, I'll have to wait here again until the sound gets in. Do you know if Wagner made a lid for the chicken fryer number 8, cast or glass? Looking for one. They most certainly did, because I have my number 9 here, chicken fryer, and let me bring it out right now. There we go. Trying not to say anything here, but yeah, this is essentially an unmarked number 9 Wagner chicken fryer, and the number 8 would essentially be, well, really just like this, because I have seen number 8 of this as well, both marked and unmarked. Sound is breaking up a bit here. I keep hearing that, unfortunately. So okay, found a Chef Wagner skillet last. Okay. Oldest piece you own? Well, okay. Anyway, this is an unmarked Wagner chicken fryer, which I've been using over the last few days as well, and it certainly does have a lid for it. The easiest way to identify a Wagner lid, well, there were several of them, but one, especially their unmarked ones, had this sawtooth ridge on the underside here. That in itself would instantly identify this as a Wagner. The Wagner also did make their drip drop lids, which had those wonderful, you know, those star shaped, the angled rims on the inside as well, but I don't think they ever made those unmarked. However, this is the most likely way you would find an unmarked Wagner lid. Although after Wagner acquired Griswold Griswold and Wagner were both acquired by the same company, that is, you know, in 1957. Then for a while, anyway, they did make unmarked Griswold lids as well, and those were perfect fit on Wagner pans. And I have seen instances of unmarked Wagner Dutch ovens with an unmarked Griswold lid on them. So since they were from the same company, I don't know if you could call it Griswold or Wagner, but from the design of the lid, I would probably call it a Griswold as well. What's a zipper Wagner lid? You know, I would probably say this is a zipper Wagner lid, and the reason why you can say that, I always call it like a sawtooth rim, but I can definitely see how it might be called a zipper, because this rim here definitely does look like, you know, the side of a zipper. So I would say this is a zipper Wagner lid. Right, let me put this back, and someone had asked here, yeah, I'm actually, I mean, I know it's like ever since I got this Bluetooth mic, regrettably, even though the sound has been nice and loud and I think crisp, it seems like I've had reception problems from the beginning. I don't, maybe next week I should try that other, that original Wi-Fi mic again, regrettably. But someone had asked about the oldest cast iron pan I own. Well, that's pretty easy. That would be this. The 15-gallon cauldron from the Savory Company of Philadelphia. I've featured that in a couple of videos, especially the jambalaya video from, I think, about 2 years, or going on 3 years ago now. So, yeah, that is definitely my one of my prized possessions here. Okay. Okay, go back to the old mic. Yeah, all right, I'll have to see about that then. And since I would, okay, get your money back for this mic. Oh, I'm too bad. Everybody said that this was supposed to be a good mic too. I mean, you probably might even heard of it. It's called a Smart Mic Plus. But okay. All right, I will have to take your word for it then. Nonetheless, a lot of the old files that were lost due to a fire on the original Blacklock Foundry. Yes, that's true. The Blacklock Foundry, it actually burned, I guess you could say, practically to the ground, in fact, and Lodge really rebuilt the foundry from the ground up. In fact, Joseph Lodge, if I remember right, you know, he got the financing together, and that's why the company was essentially renamed under Lodge, under Joseph Lodge's management, and it continued from there. And of course, as Lodge is proud to say, the year was 1890. Was it 1896? No, I think they considered 1896 to be the Blacklock Foundry. That's right. It was 1905, 1910. That's it, 1910. 1910? Yeah, I think it was 1910 that the Blacklock Foundry burned down, and then it was rebuilt as Lodge. Your favorite BSR item? Oh boy, depends on which one we have at the moment here. On one hand, you know, one of my favorites to use is good old Stumpy here. This is the Century Series. The Century Series number 14 size skillet. You know, I have a lot of good things to say about Stumpy. On the other hand, we've got our good old and very reliable Red Mountain number 8, which I certainly do enjoy. Then there is, well, yeah, and I'm actually upset that the seasoning on my number 12 Red Mountain Dutch oven seems to have come off, unfortunately, and I can't seem to, and so now I'm left with a fire-damaged BSR Dutch oven. You know, actually, speaking of Dutch ovens, only recently, as you know, within the last month or so, I managed to acquire that number 8 Red Mountain Dutch oven, which I am very pleased to have. And yeah, I've been building slowly my BSR collection, which is still not complete yet. Among other things, I'm looking for a number 5S of the S series, and then, as I mentioned in that video I published just yesterday, I'm looking for a 13-inch of the Red Mountain series camp oven, whether it's a spider or a camp oven. So, but my favorite BSR, God, it's really hard to say. I mean, I enjoy Stumpy. I enjoy my oval fish fryer. I really can't pin it down to any one, I'm sorry to say. So, looping now. Oh, I'm sorry about that, Pawpaw Dan. Okay, yeah, my favorite is number 14, but yes, it can definitely get a lot of use from from number 14. And I'm thinking as well, I actually have a very special camping trip planned for this coming June, and I'm thinking Stumpy is probably going to come along on that one. So, along with the Bayou Classic 16-quart Dutch oven. So, hello, Turner Fowler. And Nessus River Catfishing, there are brochures out there after the fire, but the black box skillets were before the fire. Most everything produced after the fire by them can be dated and identified, at least in most respects. There were a couple of other, as you know, major fires at Lodge, including one in the 1970s, and some of their records were lost, which is why they have some difficulty identifying some Lodge marks, especially those worker marks or maker's marks or shift marks that they have on the pans there. You know, the ones like the heart-shaped mark that has become something of a collector's item, it seems like, just because it's shaped like a heart, or the blob as they call it. So it was because of the blob that I actually misidentified a Lodge 3-notch skillet I had here. I was pretty certain that I had a 3-notch Lodge from the 1940s, although the milled surface, and especially that it had that blob mark on it, some of those Lodge self-proclaimed experts told me very loudly that, in fact, that was more like a 1960s to 1980s Lodge. So, all right. Rocket Caper, I've had some success seasoning fire-damaged items after several hours vinegar soak. Let it etch the surface just enough to grab hold of the seasoning. Well, I will have to give that another try, I guess. I can always give that a good soak in the lye tank for about a month or so. And then, as you said, I can try soaking it overnight in vinegar and see how well that turns out. And then we will go there. Yes, and Nanner, I have a Red Mountain and a Century 3-quart pan. Oh, congratulations! Actually, those 3-quart stew pots from BSR are actually kind of hard to find. So you definitely have a couple of special items right there. So, can you sand a fire-damaged pan? It's already damaged. Well, you can sand any cast iron pan you want, although it's generally agreed that doing so will permanently mark the pan, or damage it, as they might say, and so that might very well ruin any collector's value that the pan has. Of course, as you say, a fire-damaged pan is already damaged. Here's the thing about fire damage, and they actually posted photos of this on the Cast Iron Cooking Group a few years ago, in fact. They took microscopic enlargement pictures. Now, pictures of the surface of a cast iron pan enlarged to, if not microscopic levels, but very great enlargement. And the point is that with fire damage, the fire does affect the iron, not just on the surface, but even below the surface. The crystalline structure of the iron is damaged right through and through, from the inside and outside, and that's really what can affect a pan and make it brittle to the point where there is a greater possibility that that pan could end up cracking or breaking even. So, I mean, while they talk about things like etching fire-damaged pans and, like you just said with the vinegar bath and everything, which might indeed allow you or allow me to re-season the surface of that pot and probably get a few more years use out of it. But the point is that the pan has actually been damaged all the way down to, the inside of the iron. And that in itself means that eventually, one of these days, that pot is likely to crack. So I have no idea when that would happen. It could happen tomorrow. It could happen maybe after I'm dead. it's hard. I have no way of knowing that, but that is one of the things about fire damage. It is permanent damage to a pan. Yes, you can't. You probably could, with some of those fire damage pans anyway, re-season the surface, and that's exactly what I did with mine. In fact, as I said, my number 12 is fire damaged, so it may very well certainly be. You know, I can probably get a little bit more life out of it yet. So, yes, exactly. It's damaged all the way through. Yeah, the heat doesn't just affect the surface of the pan. It goes all the way through. So, but I mentioned before, I am still on the hunt as well for maybe one of these days a Red Mountain number 12. And so who knows? You never know. Bad thing about extreme fire damage is it actually changes the chemical composition. Yes, and I'm not a metallurgist or any kind of a really fancy scientist, so I can't give you an actual breakdown of the physical change that is made to the structure of the iron. I mean, granted, iron is an element, and it's not like it changes it to a different element, but as you said, it actually does change the structure of the pan. So. In the short answer, though, is yes, I would say you probably could sand down a fire damaged pan and then see if you can try seasoning it. So, and anyway, as always, it's your iron, and you can certainly do whatever you want with it. I certainly could. Turner Fowler, bet. Okay. And hi, yeah, and hello again. Hi, Turner. I'd never sand anything else. Well, yeah, the thing about sanding, I mean, the reason why, as I mentioned, I do not like sanding a pan, whether it's new or old, is just that, because, you know, you are essentially buffing it down, and you do leave permanent marks on it, which may very well make it look amateurish. The argument, though, is that you can still cook on a pan that's been sanded down. And I know people have said about, well, I took this Asian-made pan here and I ground the surface down, and it really cooks great. Well, to which I say, more power to you. Go ahead and use it. Again, it's your iron. You can do what I want with it. Naturally, well, not naturally, but really the thing that really grinds my gears, so to speak, is when people use a grinder and sander to do that to vintage pans, which, as we said already about that Arc Lodge lid, you know, there is only a limited number of those pans in the world. So, I mean, while it is indeed possible, you can find another one. I mean, once one of those pans is gone, well, there's one less of those pans left in the world. So, and I wish I could do a backyard cooking space. Yeah, one of many things I want to do. Is there a purpose to narrow to wide handles on lids? I guess you're talking about those lids, the difference between, they've got those so-called high dome lids versus the versus a standard lid, and even ones that have a notch on the lid, rather than notch handle, rather than the standard handle. Like, for example, let me dig up. This is my 12-inch lid from my Century Series Spider, and it has this notch on the lid for a handle rather than a standard handle. The short answer for just about all of these is, of course, the bottom line is how much money can they save by redesigning the handle. I mean, you figure, again, that's really the main reason the vast majority of all of these pans were changed and modified over time, you know, to try to save money. Because, you know, it does require some machinery, naturally, to put a handle in a lid, whether you've got one of those ones that actually pokes through the iron, and contacts the lid like this in order to make the handle, which I believe was how BSR made their lids. Or you've even seen those 19th century lids where it seems as though the handle is in two parts. that come together, and that's exactly how they did it. They actually poked two pieces of metal through the hot iron, or, well, no, correction, not so much metal, more like the pattern to make the mold, I guess I should say, in order for the iron to come together like that. All of that was done naturally for cost-cutting purposes. And in fact, those tab lids, like those tab handles, like I showed you, quite frankly, nobody really likes those things. Those things are very inconvenient. They're hard to use. They're hard to lift, easy to slip out of your grip. And yes, you can use things like one of those hook Dutch oven lid lifters to lift it, and that does work. In fact, it's one of the things they were designed to do. But the main reason why they made those things in the first place was just that, to cut costs. I did see a post from a former BS&R sales manager who mentioned that they made those tab handles on their stew pots and the camp ovens and not on the skillet lids or Dutch oven lids, because the Dutch oven lids and skillet lids sold much better and could justify the cost, whereas the camp ovens and spiders, they sold a lot less, and so as a result, they figured that it would be better to trim the budget and make a few changes to cut the costs in that way. So that's probably the best explanation for those different kind of lids, whether you've got a high dome lid or or more of a standard lid, or even one of those beehive lids, or for that matter, Griswold. Let me do this here. Damn it. Here are two different Griswold lids, for instance, with two different designs. One is the Griswold tight top, which describes it pretty much as is, and on the other hand, it has the standard rings on the underside of the lid. The other one is what they call the button lid, because it had this raised Griswold logo on the top, and I guess they call it that just because it looks like a button, so to speak, and yet that also had the same underside on the lid. So yeah, if we're talking about different designs of lids, there are two examples right there. Does anybody have any tips? Turner Fowler, I'm missing something. What are we looking for? I will cook fried chicken first to see how it goes. Then later cook cornbread, then cakes. That sounds interesting, Turner Fowler. Let me find back here. I put dirt around the inside of the bricks for insulation. Oh, you're talking about making an outside an outside cooking space. I have not done that. I have no experience with that, unfortunately. That's what I mean. I'm not an expert, and I'm afraid I can't answer every question there is out there, regrettably. So. All right, and I want one of those number 9 tight top lids. Yeah, I am quite proud to own this one, especially since it did not come with a Griswold skillet. It came with my fancy handled 19th century skillet. Let me dig that one out for you. I know I've shown this one off before, and this is one of those ones I'm quite proud of. This is what they call the fancy handle pan, which was made in the 19th century. It's gate marked, and this one just happens to perfectly, well, almost perfectly, fit this Griswold lid, and in fact, that's how I got them. I managed to pay $25 for this set, the fancy handled skillet and the Griswold lid, and the guy who sold it to me said that most of the money I was paying was for the lid. So, yeah, obviously because it's Griswold. All right, let's put this back here, and keep on going, I guess. So I hope you will share. Okay, yeah, exactly. Turner Fowler, I hope you will share the wisdom from your experiments. And the best I could say is to go ahead and keep asking questions here. And if you want to answer questions, you can certainly do so. Do I have a BSR Century 8 or 12 Dutch oven with a knob handle? I've seen those knob handles, and I have not yet been able to acquire one. The knob handle, in fact, was a screw-on, and it came out. They simply cast the lid with a little hole in the center for a screw, and they used that to attach the knob to it, which I suspect was probably a cost-cutting measure. There have been arguments over those knob-handled lids because some people originally called it a different series, and besides the Century series, they called it the Pioneer series. But in fact, that does not seem to be the case. They were still Century cookware in that. However, they did produce a line of cookware, I think especially for sales at some place like Sears Roebuck or something, and they put a Pioneer label on it. And apparently, they especially used those knob-handled lids on those those particular sets as well. And so the name kind of stuck, and they called it the Pioneer series, but it's not the Pioneer series. But I have seen pictures of those knob-handled lids, and I have not yet been able to acquire one, unfortunately. So yeah, the fancy handle. The guy who said the lid was more valuable than the fancy handle, I would dispute that. Well, there we go. That's of course the question of what is more popular to antique dealers, because you know the lid, of course, had the magic word on it, Griswold. And besides, if I were to try to sell that lid now these days on eBay, I could probably sell the lid by itself for, oh, I don't know, or put it on eBay with $100 or $150 price. But I'm not going to do that. So even though I probably could, nonetheless, I'd be breaking my wrist paying him that $25. Yeah, I bought a knob-handled lid unknowing it was a Century just because I haven't seen it before. Well, congratulations, Dean Rady. And there you go. You got yourself a nice score. I made roasted whole chicken. Well, thank you very much. I do not make it any other way. Oh yeah, yeah. I'm not. I guess you're talking about the 500-degree chicken. Oh, chicken recipe, and boy, do I love that recipe as well. So I mean, it's fast. It's clean, you know, keeps all the grease and everything inside the pot, and boy, do you get a great chicken from it. I guess I should say again, I made it clear in the video, or no, in the recipe anyway, that with that 500-degree Dutch oven recipe, the chicken should be between 3 and 5 pounds in size. Larger than 5 pounds, it's likely that the inside will not be completely cooked, not at that speed. So again, the best one is like maybe a 4 to 5 pound chicken, and that's my favorite kind for making with that recipe. Terry Sinchef, I have a number 8 aluminum self-basting skillet cover that looks like your tight top lid, and it could very well have come from Griswold or Wagner. In fact, Griswold did make aluminum cookware in aluminum Dutch ovens, and I've seen a fair number of pictures of them because, again, the Griswold name, naturally the dealers really try to push it. But of course, Wagner had their Magnolite line, although I have seen Wagner brand aluminum Dutch ovens as well. So yeah, it could very well be an aluminum Griswold lid. Do you have a Vollrath? I do not, unfortunately. Thought it would be as light, such as a favorite, but it was heavy. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, I've had, unfortunately, I have very little personal experience with Vollrath, I'm sorry to say. I've seen them on sale, again, at antique vendors, but I have not actually picked one up. Although I think one of my number 3s here, let me bring this one out here, you know, a number of these unmarked number 3 skillets here have been seen, and including this one. And even though it has this number 3 here on the handle, I've heard a number of folks say that based on the handle design, this one may actually be a Vollrath. But yeah, Vollrath did do some cast iron with their name on it, and they also did that unmarked cast iron, which is actually probably more familiar to collectors of Vollrath. You know, the one that has the size number, a very small size number that is kind of like at an angle or perpendicular to the handle. Vollrath is still around, and in that they actually stopped making domestic cookware and cast iron cookware like right around World War II, and then they got heavily into commercial food supplies. So Vollrath, if you go into a commercial restaurant supply store, you know, the kind where just that they buy, you know, they actually sell to restaurants, you're almost guaranteed to find aluminum pans from Vollrath and a whole bunch of other cookware as well with the Vollrath logo on them. A lot of them, yes, they are made in China or even in India, but there is still some made in USA Vollrath stuff out there. They do still do their own manufacturing, but not cast iron, I'm afraid. So have I done an inventory of all my pieces of cast iron? Number of Wagner, BSR, Griswold. Regrettably, I have to say I have not. The closest I've done to an inventory are those videos I did, and the last one was like in 2020, so we're talking almost 3 years ago, of where I actually did a showcase of all of the pieces in my collection, and even then I'm still not sure if it was all the pieces. So regrettably, I have not done an inventory. I'm sorry to say. I mean, heck, right here is a pile of large number 8s that are part of all of the Cracker Barrel and special logo large pans that I kind of ended up getting because I was, you know, because I was weak and I succumbed to temptation. Right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 large number 8s right here, for instance. That doesn't even include my good old large redneck pan, which is right here, and that doesn't even include these 2 large number 8s, and that would be the made in USA pans, the 2018 and the 2020 made in USA pans. So right there, that is, I have 10 modern day large number 8 pans just by itself. Oh man. And here I am trying to say again and again that I'm not a hoarder. It's kind of hard to convince you, but when I say that, so froze here. Yeah, I got 2 Vollrath tongs off of Amazon. Yes, and actually so do I. I got a small Vollrath tong. I find those, I mean, they're very durable, and I really like those Vollrath tongs. The small ones are especially good for doing things like, well, flipping over a steak and the like. So I'm quite happy about that. Randy Duffy, I found and bought a Rosie the Riveter pan a few weeks ago. Are they still being made by Lodge? Okay, are they collectible? I would say yes, in a manner of speaking. Lodge, I did a video on this. You can look this up. The one that mentions the Lodge Made in America series, which lasted only 3 years, 2018 through 2020. The 2020 Made in America pan was the first Rosie the Riveter skillet from Lodge, and they discontinued it at the end of the year. It was a big bestseller for Lodge, and there are a lot of reasons for that. And, you know, among other things, it actually came out during the pandemic, for starters. And but as I said, watch the video for details about that. However, it was so popular that just last year, yes, Lodge started last year, actually in 2021, Lodge did indeed start reproducing the Rosie the Riveter skillet, and I think they are still producing it today. That of course is the one that simply has Rosie and the "We Can Do It" slogan on it. It does not have the year of manufacture on it. I do believe Lodge is still making those, and Lodge is also now making their Made in America pan, which they're probably going to make forever because Made in America, those pans are always popular. So collectible, I am pretty sure the 2018 and 2020 made in America skillets from Lodge will be considered collector's items. And it's entirely possible that the later Rosie the Riveter pan could be a collector's item as well. It's less certain because of the circumstances and because currently there is no end date on those Rosie the Riveter skillets. So the camera is angled at your gut. Yes, I know. That's mostly actually because I wanted to get as good a shot of my collection as possible, unfortunately. So yes, I agree. It shows off my gut, which over the last week or so, I've been trying to start a diet. I think I've mentioned that already, and so far the results have been questionable. I don't seem to have gained weight, but I don't seem to have lost it either, and that means I am definitely going to be making another drastic attempt, pretty much starting right now. But, well, it's only March. I have time to do it yet. What cast iron didn't move with you? I gave my first black lock skillet to my roommate, and a couple of other pieces of cast iron as well. She liked the BSR square skillet, and I gave that one to her as well. So she definitely has those two pieces. Hi, Trouble. Hi. She definitely has those two pieces. At least I hope she still has them. Most of my collection, though, I do have to say, came with me. I'm trying to think. There was something else I wanted to leave behind. Oh, yeah, all of my vintage Pyrex bowls. But there's a reason for that as well, and anybody who saw my video on the Pyrex bowls probably knows what that reason was. Do sit-ups holding a cast iron number 14. Yeah, exactly. How many enemies did you make moving with all that cast iron? You know, the funny thing was, this was probably the easiest move I think I've ever had, and my friend Panic, who helped me move, said the same thing as well. Partly because I actually boxed up all of this cast iron myself, and I lugged it to a U-Haul storage facility where it sat for a couple of weeks while I was finalizing the final, the actual closing date on this new home here. And so when that finally went through, I paid a moving company to load up a U-Haul moving van with all that cast iron. So actually it was a lot easier than you might have thought. Especially since the interesting thing was with that U-Haul, I had originally rented out a 10-foot U-Haul van, and because they were out of those 10-foot U-Hauls, they gave me a free upgrade to a 15-foot U-Haul van. I think a lot of you have probably done that. They do that quite often, but I actually had a lot of space in that van, so I was actually able to move all the cast iron. So glad the tornadoes missed you. Well, I'm sorry, you're not talking about me. My apologies. Remember when you thought they stole a pan from the lie tank? Oh yeah, I know. That's true too. I thought that, and I was wrong. So that was because I actually had an empty lie tank sitting outside for all that time, and I didn't even realize it until I tried emptying that lie tank on a live. So yes, I reached in and there was nothing there, and for a while I thought that someone may have stolen it from the lie tank. Didn't last long, though. It turned out that was not the case. That's partly because I was living in the hood. And yes, unfortunately, my apartment had in fact been robbed within that period of time, so I had reason to be suspicious. As such, a much audio still, yes, I know. I'm kind of upset about that, and yeah, I guess I am going to have to go back to the other wireless mic, which, as I can say, I'm kind of disappointed too. Oh well. Nonetheless, Rick Stumbo, soaking your stomach with whiskey helps the arthritis pain. Oh, there you go. Well, that's one way to do it. Any cast iron grill collectors here? If there are, go ahead and raise your hands. I have not yet gotten into collecting cast iron grills, and I should probably keep myself from collecting cast iron grills because I'm by myself and I really would not be able to get much use out of more than one cast iron grill. So, I mean, I know about, of course, the Sportsman grill, both the new and old, and I've seen a number of other grills. There is a Facebook group there, in fact, called Cast Iron, what's it called? Cast Iron Grill and Hibachi World, where, yeah, that's the actual title of it, Cast Iron Grill and Hibachi World, where there are collectors of cast iron grills, and they've got some very impressive ones there, too, that you might want to check out. So, oh, grandson, I was supposed to make another cookie, but wife had upset stomachs, had to reschedule. Well, I hope the cookie turns out all right. So 2 years later, I had 6 grills. Oh, yeah, Joseph Ortiz. I know the feeling. That's why they call it cast ironitis. That's for sure. Another cast iron group to get lost in. Oh, yeah, well, tell them I sent you. So... All right. Anyway, let me see what else we have for questions here. My home took a 26-foot U-Haul, and the last move took a POD. Oh, a pod. Wow. Yeah, well, I was moving out of a 3-room apartment into this home here that is easily more than twice the size of that apartment. So I was lucky in that respect. After that 3-room apartment, I now have a 6-room home on 2 floors, plus the attic, plus the basement, plus the garage. So yeah, at this point I have a lot of space, and as I said, I'm trying not to be a hoarder. I do not want to fill this entire place up with crap. Trouble. Down, Trouble, right now. Oh, you're getting down. He heard me. Here. Hold on one second. Here. Hi, Trouble. Here you go. There you go. Do I have a yard? Yes, I have a yard now, in fact. I have a front yard, I have a backyard, and the backyard actually has a fence, too. So far, I have done very little with it because, well, what can I say? I moved in August, so my main concern has been and still is settling in and unpacking and making the place livable. So once spring comes, I'm going to be able to give more attention to the yard, among other things, learning how to mow the lawn for the first time after spending my entire life living in apartments. So, saw your comment about McCleary cast. They made very nice cast iron. Yeah, McCleary. Weren't they one of the ones who I believe who made those beehive lids, if I remember right? Mobley was here, but I think she's retired upstairs for the time being. So Mike is still crackly, and I can only apologize for that, unfortunately. All right, yeah, I'm upset about that. I'm not sure how I'll be able to manage this, but I will dig out the other mic for next week, unfortunately. Trouble heard you, but does he care? Interestingly enough, he recognizes his name, as I've found out. So plant some veggies and maybe a fire pit. Keep the iron out of the garage. Rust City. Yeah, tell me about it. Although, you know what I do have in my garage? My new lye tank. And I'm quite happy to be keeping it in there because it's, you know, there's a lot of room. It's spacious and it's still out of sight. I have 2 Sportsmen, 1 Sportsman Pro, and a Lodge tailgater. Nice. Sportsman Pro, I guess that would be the new Lodge Sportsman grill, which I've heard a lot of good things about it. The one disappointing thing I've heard about the new Lodge Sportsman Pro grill is that it can wobble if you place it on uneven ground, unfortunately. So because it has rails rather than the legs that it used to. Congratulations on the complete BSNR S series. Well, nice. Never seen a 5 or a 7. Well, I thought I'd shown my 7 BSR. Let me dig that one out then. Let's see where we have it. Here it is. This should be it. There you go. Well, if you're saying you've never seen a BSR 7S, here it is. This is one of those scores I was fortunate to make. Yeah, the dealer didn't know what it was, and I think I got this for like about $22, if I remember right. And yes, it is actually more the size of a BSR number 6. In fact, now that I think of it, here we are. This is a BSR with 3-quart lid, which, yeah, yet another thing I still have to season, unfortunately. And you can see it's got a tab handle and everything. This is a 3-quart BSR lid, and it fits absolutely perfect on this 7S skillet. So that also proves that this 7S is, in fact, the same size as a number 6 BSR skillet. So do this the other way. And funny thing about this, of course, is that it actually has a B as well, which means so there was like a mold A or a mold B or something like that. But I like to say this definitely proves that BSR, it may be BSNR, but it certainly ain't no BS. So never sell a McCleary. Yeah, that number 7 is a jewel. I certainly do like this. On the other hand, I like my other BSR number 7, Lightning. That's the handwritten pan with those casting flaws on it that make it look like it has cracks, but they're not cracks. So I just call it Lightning because it also looks like lightning. So number 7 is perfect to make omelets. And I can only agree with that as well. So, all right. Did BSNR ever produce hammered items? You know, here's a funny little story. The former employees and executives of BSNR said no. They never did produce hammered pans. And yet, sometime within the last year or so, on the BSR Facebook group, which is called BSR Lodge and Hammered Pans, somebody actually posted what looked unquestionably had to be a Red Mountain skillet with a hammered pattern on it. And people were flabbergasted when they saw it. And the best conclusion they could come up with was that it was a proof of concept, that that the factory may have actually produced a hammered skillet as just an experiment. My thought would have to be that, you know, hammered skillets were something of a fad during the Art Deco period. So we're talking like maybe the 1930s to 1940s or 1920s to 1930s. But anyway, around that period, that was when hammered pans came out. And I would probably want to date that BSR to that era. However, in general, no, they did not have a series of hammered skillets. So the Sportsman Pro wobbles because the customer tightens up the 2 bolts too tight. Okay, well, there is that as well. So, so I stand corrected there. Number 5 is perfect for small tortillas. Yes, indeed. I do indeed enjoy my number 5s. And that's, that's another one I have way too many of. I have several number 5s. BSR number 5s, Lodge number 5s. I've got a Wagner number 5 in here. I think I do, but I definitely have old and new Lodge. In fact, what we have right here in the front, we have, come on, here it is, a single notch Lodge number 5. And as a matter of fact, this is still exactly the same size as a modern day Lodge number 5. They never did change the size of their pans even from the old days. So So yeah, and I do agree that these things are really good for omelets. Let me put this down for now. I'll put all of these back later. How do you decide between your many pans? Yeah, it's hard to say. I don't know. Zen, I guess. It's like I feel which pan wants to be used. Sometimes it's really hard to say. For some, I feel like it would be appropriate to cook something or another. Like, for instance, I like to take out the made in America pan on days like on the 4th of July and Memorial Day, for instance. Whereas on the other hand, let me see. On the other hand as well, one thing I've been trying to do is rotate through my collection so that I can freshen up these pans. I mean, with a collection this large, it's hard to use all of these, and of course a pan can start to go rancid if it's not used after a while. So that's one reason why I've been trying to rotate through them as much as possible. For instance, I've been making breakfast regularly in this modern day Lodge Blacklock skillet, whereas just the other day I got some more use out of the Stargazer #8. So, and likewise, I used that Wagner chicken fryer as well for doing a couple of pork steaks. In that instance, I wanted to use the chicken fryer because it's a deep skillet and it helped to cut down on the splatter. So I don't have any real system for determining which pans I'm going to use day after day. It's pretty much whatever captures my fancy. For example, when I have my company over on St. Patrick's Day for corned beef and cabbage, I was going to be using the BSR #12, except that now that one has to be reseasoned. So right now it means I'm going to have to bring up the cauldron here, which is the South African potjie, and this should be large enough to cook corned beef and cabbage for everyone. So that still should not be a problem. Monday morning, 3 notch lot. Oh yeah, one of those. I've heard of those. What is the purpose for the notches on the heat rings? You know, I never did see an explanation for that. My guess would be it was really more of an identifier mark than anything else, because I can't see any other use at all that a Lodge cast iron had for the notches in the ring, other than it made it easy to identify. And that would have to be my guess. Much like the reason why each company had its own handles on their pans, for instance. So I'm a believer that the Mercedes pans were made by BSR. It's undocumented, but it's just my opinion. Oh yeah, those Mercedes pans. Well, the thing is that how can we explain that there are also Mercedes pans that have the markings of an unmarked Wagner? I mean, again, the exact marking on the back, except, of course, for that peace sign logo. So that's why it's a mystery. And I might tend to think for that reason that they may have been made more likely by Wagner, perhaps, in their later days. The other thing about those Mercedes skillets is that recently, 1 or 2 of them were identified as actually having a Teflon coating on them. Yes, Teflon. BSR did, in fact, experiment with Teflon-coated cast iron. It was not a good seller. Otherwise, they would have produced more of it. But there are a few pieces out there still floating around. Because of that, some BSR collectors have become convinced that all of the Mercedes pans were originally Teflon coated, and I have not seen enough evidence to prove that, unfortunately. So I forget whose channel, but it's upside down. Oh, the Monday Morning Lodge. I've seen that one as well. I think you're talking about, especially it would be a Lodge #3. Which had a backwards #3 logo on it. I've seen a few of them, in fact. So yes, that has to mean at some point, like you said, on some Monday morning, somebody actually made a pattern with a backwards #3, which ended up producing a number of molds, which ended up producing a number of Lodge cast iron pans with that backwards #3. They say it's because the worker was drunk, but I think it was a matter of whether the worker was right-handed or left-handed. Well, there is certainly that. And anyway, again, especially in those days, you got to remember, as I said, the product they were making, you know, they just considered them to be cheap frying pans. They weren't anything special as far as they were concerned. They were concerned, of course, about making sure they were good quality. But as far as things like a backwards number 3 or a BSR with a little triangle under the handle, or maybe a casting flaw or 2, most of the time they just simply didn't care. As long as it met basic quality standards, namely that you could use it on your stove, then that was good enough, in which case the worker just put it on the pile and went on to the next one. And in fact, I think I've got another thing to show. Let's bring this one out. Here it is. Yeah. Here is a Century chicken fryer. I mean, naturally, it has the made in USA and a number 10 mark and everything. The chicken fryers were flat, did not have heat rings. But with this particular one, if you look on the inside, it has casting flaws here. I'm hoping I can show it correctly in the light, that actually look like they may be cracked here on the inside, except that it's not. These are definitely just, oh, there's some good lighting for you. These are definitely casting flaws. This pan is not cracked, and it works just fine, and I would use this pan without any hesitation. As you can see, there are no cracks at all on the outside. So, but it's funny that it looks like this, and frankly, if a factory had really strict quality control, it's probably doubtful that this pan would have actually made it past that, and yet here it is. So, I mean, again, I'd say the quality control was actually simply, does it work? You know, can you cook with it? If so, put it on the pile. It's good enough. And that is the main reason why we occasionally come across pans with flaws, or completely unmarked pans with no markings on the bottom, or the Monday morning lodge, or little things like that, because none of that affects the cooking. That's really what it comes down to. So, all right, cast iron cookware channel. Oh, Cynthia Stephen has one. Okay. All right. Yeah, never seen a BSR 1. What year did Lodge quit making the notch pans? My understanding is they were making those notch pans all the way up to the 1990s, I believe. And then it was in the 1990s they completely redesigned their pans, and that was when, among other things, they put the helper handle or the lifting handle on their lodge, on their skillets as well. So I would have to say it was probably as late as the 1990s. And that's when that was the birth of the modern day lodge pans that we are seeing everywhere now, of course. 1992 when they went to the egg logo. Yes, exactly. So yeah, Lodge, again, we have to remember as well that Lodge was getting into some pretty serious financial difficulty by the time the 1990s rolled around. I mean, that was also when Wagner went out of business, and when BSR declared bankruptcy. BSR finally went bankrupt it was the same year, 1992, 1993, and Wagner finally folded completely in 1999. Those were tough times. So Lodge was pretty desperate to try to find something that would get their product to sell. And that was when they came up, as they say, of course, you know, with their pre-season pans, which turned out to be a big hit with the public, and that really saved the company from bankruptcy. So, and that's one reason why Lodge has been making their pans like that ever since. And now that's why all Lodge pans have that so-called rough surface, and probably why I think we're never going to see Lodge ever completely smoothing and sanding and grinding their pans out ever again for that reason, because this is their business model. As I said, it's what made them save them from bankruptcy. Lodge, as has been said already, the past decade or so has been among the most profitable in Lodge's entire history. So in other words, they've got a currently they've got a business model that works, so they're not going to change it to for that reason, and they're not going to take that much of a risk. So mine is a number 14 pizza skillet. Oh yeah, I love the number 14s, especially for that reason. And what was this? I was told the number 3 backwards upside down was produced more than the other one. The molds were so expensive to make that they ran with it. Molds, well, I would think now that molds are a lot easier to make these days because, of course, you know, they have computerized design. I mean, after all, they can use 3D printing now, and that's essentially what they do to produce a pattern for a mold. So it's much easier for a lodge to come up with these really elaborate designs for their bottoms of their skillets there. And that's why I really hope that one of these days they do get back more into the custom-made cast iron pan designs. Lodge currently, or last I heard, Lodge does have a program for businesses and other things where they will produce a custom designed cast iron pan for you. The catch is you've got to make an investment of like about $60,000, because apparently the cost is about $60 per pan, and you have to order a minimum of 1,000 pans. So especially since they've got their new factory going on, and especially since now, of course, again, we've got 3D designs to make it so much easier to make that, I really hope Lodge might introduce a new system of custom design skillet where you could indeed design your own Lodge cast iron pan. That would be interesting. Meaning, of course, just the design on the bottom. The pan would be the same. But yeah, I would like to see more of that. So, if you were going to put a pan, Kimberly Miller, if you were going to put a pan up for keepsake, what would be the best way to preserve it and the best oil for it? Oh boy. Preserve a pan for keepsake. Well, here's the thing. If you wanted it to be a wall hanger and a decoration, of course, you could have the pan, you know, shellacked or some other non-edible coating on it, you know, maybe even painted, but obviously most people probably would not want that. As far as a pen coating that lasts, I would say that the new seasonings that they've got for the cast iron now, you know, the things like Buzzy Wax and Crisby seasoning and Easy Beezy cast iron seasoning, all of those are really good, and I would think that they should last a long time as well, including putting your cast iron into storage. So if you really want something like that, and it's really not that much of an investment, that cast iron seasoning is really not that expensive, so it might be worth it if you feel that you have a need for it. There's what it comes down to, if you have a need for it. So I've already given my statement about flaxseed oil. Flaxseed oil looks nice in the short run. In the long run, though, it's been seen that it tends to flake off after a while, maybe months, maybe a few years. But for long-term use and storage, no, flaxseed is definitely not the way to go. So Babuska, if you know you'll be away and unable to use the pan, but want to use the pan eventually, what are good storage tips away for 6 months to a year and a half? I would probably, well, besides seasoning it in that manner, I would probably want to wrap it in plastic and put it in an airtight container. I would hope that might help to preserve it. So, you know, just some good plastic wrap, and like I said, you know, like maybe a one of those plastic storage containers or the big Tupperware bins that they have at Wally World and other places. So, John Moore, I'm worried Buzzy Wax and other oil-based coatings might go rancid over time. I don't have enough experience to be able to say no to that. So you might be right over time, although part of the point is that it's a combination of oil plus beeswax. And I would think that beeswax should be a long-term seasoning as well, because I do not think that beeswax would go rancid. Maybe you might even want to try seasoning it only with beeswax and see what the result might be. So I stored mine with food-grade mineral oil, and that's not a bad idea either. I stacked mine with parchment paper, and I have never had one go rancid with Buzzy Wax. Well, there we go. There's a nice product plug for you. If it's seasoned good, you don't need to recover them in any kind of oil. Well, yes, there is that. But the other thing, of course, is using them regularly. That will, of course, keep them fresh, and they won't go bad if you use them regularly. But it's difficult because if you plan on putting them in storage for a long period of time, or for that matter, if you've got a big cast iron collection like this, then you certainly do have to consider that these pans are going to go rancid over time. And that's why I've been slowly working my way through my collection, trying to keep my pans freshened as much as possible for that reason. So I have the shakes bad from all the medicine. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Debbie. My condolences for that. So all right, let's see what else we have here as well. So, Dean, I have a number 10 and 8 with screw heads. You're a very patient man. Oh yeah, the screw heads, the screw marks on the pans. Yes, those were, of course, quality control, and it's been pointed out already. It's like when they were seeing signs that there might be a mold or a pattern that might be going bad, they imprinted a screw head mark on the pattern so that I could identify which pans and which molds were coming out of that. So that's pretty much well known. Of course, the real secret naturally is that if you want to be sure, just don't undo that screw head, otherwise the pan will leak. Yes, I'm joking. So my weakness is number 5 and number 8. Yours? My weakness is probably BSR. But yeah, I do have a weakness for number 3s as well, because they're small and portable. And I've got about 15 number 3s. All of them are different, so in one way or another. So I think I did one of my little cast ironitis videos about that. In fact, if you've got a big selection, if you go through your pan, that's it. If you collect different kinds of cast iron, the way kids collect Pokemon cards, there we go. And that's when I was showing off my number 3s. So got a big heart trivet cast iron, quite large, nice. Rusted, but it cleaned quick and easy. Well, congratulations on that. So I only have 10 skillets, 2 Dutch ovens, and I have a hard time using all of them on a regular basis. Yeah, and I'll bet you don't live by yourself either. I'll bet you have your family as well helping you use that cast iron. So yes, then you know what it's like really trying to work your way. Oh, excuse me. Sorry, I don't know where that came from. Where you're trying to work your way through your collection and keep everything fresh. It is something of a chore. I will certainly say that. Yes. Elsie's cat. My weakness is acquiring new lodges I don't need. Oh, I know what you're talking about, and you have to remember, Cracker Barrel is going to be releasing a new America skillet this year, because they've been releasing one for like the last 12 years now. Although I was really, really happy that I was able to acquire last year's skillet, and I did that again. This is probably the most attractive design I've seen in a cast iron pan in quite a while, and I'm so glad I got this. This was last year's walking living Liberty $1/2 skillet. Lodge made this for Cracker Barrel, and yeah, just because this design is so incredible, I have little doubt this is also going to be a collector's item. But I'm just glad to have it, and I definitely need to give this one, along with others, more use as well. I have no intention of selling this, especially since this is, well, I have personal reasons for it as well. Way back when I was a kid, for a couple of years, my parents were into coin collecting, which means we got into coin collecting, which means I got into coin collecting, and I'm talking about the late 70s or so. And I never forgot, my mom said that the Walking Liberty $1/2 was her favorite coin. So, yes, I think of her whenever I bring this out. So, yes, this pen does have sentimental value to me. And I have 10.5-inch pans the most. I have over 10 different types. Yes, exactly. And again, that's why we call it cat. I forgot about Dutch ovens. I was thinking of skillets. I love Dutch ovens too. I'm liking the Yellowstone design on the new Lodge. Well, here I have to say I know nothing about Yellowstone. My understanding is it's a popular TV series, and that's about where it ends for me. I canceled my cable TV in 2010, September of 2010, and have not looked back. I almost never watch TV now because I can usually catch up with it online. So I know almost nothing about Yellowstone. I have not even seen it. But it's popular enough that Lodge actually has released that line of Yellowstone skillets, and I'm sure they're quite popular, in fact, for that reason. Your mic gets bad when you're too close to the computer. Okay, I thought you said it got bad when I was too far away from it. In that case, I've stepped away from the computer. All right, yeah, like I said, I will break out the Wi-Fi mic once again after this, and I'm sorry for the sound trouble here. I got this, in fact, to try to have a better quality mic. So, have you met anyone from this YouTube channel in person? Well, at the National Cornbread Festival several times, I've seen my good friend Jeff Rogers, you know, the culinary fanatic. Only a couple of months ago, while I was browsing the local flea market here in the Binghamton area, somebody recognized me. Somebody recognized me from my channel. So, and I'm sorry to say I forgot his name already. He might even be here on this YouTube live tonight. I forget. But that was probably the very first time I was recognized just from my YouTube channel. So, even though my channel is approaching 50,000 subscribers, and I thank every one of you for that. Thank you very much for subscribing. It's still a small channel compared to, like, say, I don't know, Joshua Wiseman, for instance, who I think is passing 6 million subscribers. And I don't expect I'm ever going to get that big, especially since I try to keep this as a hobby. As such, I really am not such a big deal, and I'm not trying to be modest when I say that. So I recognize that, and that so I have almost never met anyone from my YouTube channel, and I don't know when I will. I should probably say I do not, unfortunately, expect to go to the National Cornbread Festival this year. I would love to go, but I don't have anyone to look after the cats. It would be like about a 6-day road trip, Thursday through Tuesday, and I cannot leave the cats out for that long by themselves. I live by myself, so I do not have, unfortunately, I'm kind of tied down. Can't go on long road trips now because of the cats, and so that means I'm going to just have to miss out on the Cornbread Festival. Sorry to say that. So, all right, bets they are the closest to vintage that we have found. Oh, okay, let's see what Captain Kirk is talking about. Good things come from small channels. Well, I certainly hope so. Can you board the cats at a kennel? I've never sent them to a kennel. They may very well scared to death. I could look into it, I guess. So, but I mean, I've never brought the cats to a kennel. They may, as I said, they may not appreciate that. All right. When is Lodge making the Chaos Pan? Shit, it's hard to say. Although I will say, at least I do have a Chaos Pan. I have a couple of Chaos Pans, one of which is the Stargazer, for one. Yeah. So yes, I do admit, I'm kind of interested in the Stargazer pan because of that. Another pan that is, you could call a Chaos Pan. Let me get this one. Chances are a lot of people already have this pan, but here it is, the good old BSR, cornbread pan. Because yes, it does in fact have the 8, the design of it. I indeed do identify with it as chaos. So, so yes. Back right now. And other than that, all right. Okay, it was blessing. Trust me, it's the only one I own. Lodge should. Well, Lodge doesn't know me that well, unfortunately. So, cat hotel, not kennel. Well, I guess I could start looking at it. I probably should, actually, because, yeah, I would indeed like to get back to the Cornbread Festival. The last time I was there was 5 years ago, 2018. So yes, I am actually missing that road trip to the Cornbread Festival. So my dog's going to the kennel and love coming home, so no guilt. All right, approach Lodge to make one. We'd line up for them. Why don't you bring the cats with you to Tennessee? No. No. These cats here, I do far too risky. Being on them with them on a 2-day road trip, keeping them in an unknown motel, and then another 2-day road trip back. No, there's far too much risk for that. Would not even consider it. All right, yeah, it should have a smoke detector on it. Oh, yeah, yes, exactly. I love my smoke detector. Doesn't anybody? Anyway, what was Captain Kirk saying about, vintage here? I like my internet better. Oh, exactly, yes. I have a friend. I live by myself, Terry Sinchep. I have a friend who likes to make dinner for me in my cast iron, in the enamel cast iron I gave her. Well, you have a good friend then, and I consider that, consider that a very, very nice and friendly move there. Own any griddles? Actually, yes. I've got a big square griddle. In fact, it's Asian made. It's from a Weber, maybe from a Weber stove of some kind or another, and it's a square griddle that I inherited from my parents, and it also doesn't get enough use to it. I still have a couple of griddles sitting in my give it away pile because I tried to use them as lids for my BSR Red Mountain deep fryer. Neither of them sit very well, but other than that, I find myself that with all of these other things in my collection here, including the BSR Sportsman shallow fryer, which makes a great griddle, or good old Stumpy number 14, which makes a great griddle, or the BSR or the Lodge pizza pan, which makes a great griddle, or for that matter, this made in Mexico, no less, Comal, which makes a nice little tortilla griddle. So that's about what I have for griddles. so that's as far as I've gone as far as griddles are concerned. Papa bets you have Griswolds, don't you? Lancaster cast iron is the closest thing that we've found to be most like the vintage. Oh yes, that Lancaster cast iron. My mind was completely blank. I believe I was acquired, or that's it. That's right. Someone, I can't believe I'm already forgetting this. About a couple of years ago, I was gifted a Lancaster cast iron skillet, and that was very nice. And in fact, it's made in Pennsylvania, not too far from where I am. And I ended up giving it away in one of these live videos because I really did not have any use for it. So I'm hoping that the person who has it might still be here, in fact. How do those griddles that have a bail work? You know, I never knew that because, no, you really can't just simply hang it from the bail because, of course, it would tip over back and forth. So I don't have an answer for that. I would think that that bail griddle, oh, well, here's a possibility. Maybe say this. Say you rested that bail griddle on a campfire, for example, and then when you was done, you could lift it up by the bail because, you know, obviously the pan itself would be blazing hot. So that might be one possibility, perhaps. I have to say I'm guessing, and I'm being completely honest about that. Okay, wow, we've really been here. No, we haven't been here an hour and a half, although we're getting close to it. I did start a few minutes early, you know, for the cats. Hi, yes, hi, Trouble. I think he heard me, in fact. All right, tortilla griddle. Well, yeah, that tortilla griddle, in fact, that Comal was a $5 find at a flea market. I guess I got it for $5 because, you know, they didn't consider it very valuable. Maybe because it's made in Mexico, but that's the reason why I got it, in fact. So, any sand-shaped skillet? Not sure what you mean by sand-shaped skillet. If you mean like maybe a homemade skillet, like they've seen in some viral videos, we cast a cast iron skillet from scratch using sand. I have not been able to acquire any of those. I really haven't had much of desire to acquire one of those because I've got this collection, and that really is hard to kind of justify getting another pan for just that reason, unfortunately. Yes, exactly. Heard trouble. Yes. All right, time just flies. Yeah, tell me about it. I mean, again, we are actually getting to that point here, nonetheless. And it's like the questions could go on, and I could probably keep answering them. Although I do have to say yet again, that we are approaching that time because, well, it is a Wednesday night, which it is every Wednesday, of course. But you know what that means? It means that it's a work night for me as well as for a lot of you folks as well. So, I mean, we can't stay here for much longer, unfortunately. So, but still, yes, yeah, I do enjoy these chats. You know, they're very easy. I enjoy the conversation. I enjoy the questions. And I enjoy rambling on and on, as you've probably seen. So that's why I'm glad to make this at least a monthly one. Next week, though, of course, is in fact the week before St. Patrick's Day. And I certainly do intend to do some St. Patrick's Day preparation, even though the corned beef itself is probably still going to be in the brine, unfortunately. So, but we are getting to that point. Everybody, please hit the like button. Well, thank you very much, Papa Dan. Yes, thank you. And thank you, though, everybody, as always, for showing up. I mean, as I said, it's really you folks here who make these lives so much fun, especially this one tonight, because just that, I was here to ask questions. Hello, Trouble. Yeah, I'm sure you heard that, too. Meow. Hi, Trouble. But again, I'm very, as I said, I am honestly very grateful to everybody for showing up because it's really you folks here who make this a lot of fun. I enjoy doing this, and it's really because of you that these lives are so entertaining for me. So everybody, and thank you for sharing a part of your day, and well, thank you for sharing a part of your day with everybody here as well. I mean, I know you can just sit and play and have this playing in the background, but that in itself is something special. I can only thank you so much for that. So thank you, everybody, and thank you, William Hurt and Corey Clark and Kimberly Miller and Christine Bergatti and Dean Reedy. Meet up in the future. Well, I can only work on it. That's the best I could say. I am planning a housewarming party, maybe by the summertime, I hope. Otherwise, yeah, okay, why are you trying to get into that closet? Any chance would there be something in there? Well, I guess that's what you're going to find out. But anyway, I guess we will, as I said, we will continue this again. I can only mark this as just that, as to be continued. So thank you, everybody, for showing up. And everybody, have yourself a good evening as well. Winter's not over, so everybody keep warm, all right? And thank you again for being here. And we will, of course, do this all again next week. So see you all next Wednesday.